Thank you for joining us on a discussion about individualism and collectivism in the context of organizational ethics. So, to put this into context, what's driving this discussion is a survey I pulled out of Organizational Ethics: A Practical Approach, a book written by C.E. Johnson on the conversation of organizational ethics. And this survey is on the question of individualism versus collectivism, as we see here. Now, I pulled the survey questions out of the book and put them into Microsoft Excel, and then just made the Excel, my little calculating machine with the formulas plugged in from the book. And here are my answers to the questions. Um, you know, basically give you a little bit of time to read those if you care to read them, slow them down or whatever it is. Everything is for posterity after all. And so here are my results, because it's going to give me basically, do I value the individual or the collective? And here are the results. So it says 35 for individual and 36 for collective. Those are the results, 35, 36. So it essentially tells me that I'm ever so slightly a little bit more for the collective than I am for myself as an individual. And that doesn't surprise me as feedback from the survey, because traditionally I have been someone who has been a team player, who has been a part of really elite, high performing teams in high stress, high demanding operational situations. And so, yeah, I will a little bit have kind of a Captain America complex, where I'm the one who wants to, volunteer to, give my life for the cause. And we kind of come, and that's where we arrive. A lot of this is the choice of, do I make a choice that's good for me, or do I make a choice that's good for the greater good? And that comes from what I call the fallacy of the mean, or the fallacy of like the mean, like MEAN, mean, from Nicomachean Ethics. Nicomachean Ethics is so ingrained in our Western value system that we arrange everything in this bipolar oppositional arrangement in our ethical decision making process, uh, vice and virtue. And then, Aristotle would then argue and say somewhere, you know, vice, virtue, and excess, somewhere between the vice and the excess is how we arrive at what a virtue is. Um, what is good for me is good for society. Maintaining the individual leads to retaining the collective. The reality that I acknowledge is that in a metaphorical way, we're all passengers on a crashing airplane. And if you've ever been a passenger on a crashing airplane, the safety video says when the airplane is crashing and the airbags or the air masks are deployed, put your own mask on first before you go and help those next to you in need of an air mask. This lesson is again reinforced in when I was learning open water rescue. We were taught that if we ever come into a situation of like crashing surf against maybe like a rock face or a cliff or something, then we're to take the drowning individual's body and use them as a buffer as we collide into the rocks. Because it doesn't do anyone any good if the rescue swimmer is injured getting bashed into the rocks and then nobody's getting out of the water. Um, Again, a situation where serving the collective serves the individual first, or the collective is served by serving the individual first. So the truth is it's such a complex ethical dilemma, individual from collective, that it breaks this linear, like, oppositional context. Whereas in arguably, we could say that what is good for the individual is good for the collective, because a collective exists as a group of individuals. Um, an individual exists because a collective. Our Western obsession with individualism is our Western obsession with individualism. It's kind of associated with our culture and has, you know, driven lots of horrible genocidal acts here in the United States. Um, so, yes, we're very tied to our individualistic culture, and it is very important. Um, because maintaining the individual leads to retaining of the collective. And organizations translate this into slogans like people first. And any of us who have ever worked for an organization where your slogan is people first or something similar, there's probably a good few of you that were like, well, I really didn't feel that way. And that's because we're still defining and refining what processes are humane for workers. In some organizations, there's rumors that they offer personal time, bereavement leave for when your pet dies. Now, me as an individual, this is something that I would take advantage of and would appreciate and would look for in an organization. And it demonstrates just in that one little tiny, like, encapsulated benefit, a, a high minded and a considerate organization, is what it indicates in my mind. And so then, management's always like everyone just wants to take more time off. Well, the truth is we're so productive we can take more time off, and um, yeah, we're so productive, and the leading edge, cutting edge organizations are capturing their worker efficiency and then reinvesting it back into their organizations. So it again, the individual and the collective coexist. And it's really important for the collective to protect identity, and it's really important for identity to understand itself in a open and cooperative world and society. I hope that makes sense. Um, Anyways, if you want to, my Instagram is open for the public. You can follow my Instagram account. It's nothing fancy, it's nothing flashy. I started it a few years ago when I began my running or began my run for office as Walla Walla County Commissioner. Nothing fantastic. I lost the race, but it was very educational and it was a great experience. And I would recommend and urge everyone who listening to this or anyone in general run for office. It's a great way to polish just your interpersonal skills, and it really helps with social media work, I think, as well too. So that's pretty much it. There is no difference between the individual and the collective. They are, it's a codependent, symbiotic, whatever you want to call it, relationship. If we even identify that there is an individual and there is a collective after hours of philosophical discussion. Um, yeah. If I want good roads, good streets, I need to get involved in the collective, in politics, in the process. So that's how that works. And the world is ran by vocal minorities on all political spectrums, left, right, up, down. So be safe out there, and fair winds and following seas.